FinDock release webinar. Thank you for joining. My name is Stefan for people who don't know me. I'm the product manager at FinDock. With me today is Lawrence, who is a technical business analyst at FinDock, and together we are very proud to present to you the June 21 release of FinDock. And in this session, we will go over the main features of the release, and it will also give you the ability to ask questions about it if you have so, right? So if you have a question, feel free to either ask that question in the Q&A or use the chat or reach out to us afterwards. We are very keen to get your feedback. And we use this session also to, for the FinDock initiated and the people who know us and work with us. So yeah, we are happy to spend time with you. The release currently, as all the features that we are discussing currently are already in your sandbox environments and available to you to install yourself in your development orgs. And they will be pushed to production on Sunday night, June the 20th. So on Monday the 21st, all this functionality as discussed will be available in your production environment to you. As usual, we'd like to cover 4 topics from our release in this webinar. The first being an update on our auto-collect pilot, which moves from pilot to beta. Secondly, we want to talk and share to you the updates we did around our second pilot called data validation, where we help you validate your data before you process your recurring payments. And thirdly, we want to introduce to you a new FinDock product we are now showing for the first time, and which we are actually really excited about to show to you, which we call FinDock PayLinks. And we will take ample of time to go over the new functionality, give you a proper demo, and we are very keen to hear what you think about that. And then last but definitely not least, we know that, as usual, as always, there's a couple of bugs and enhancements and tweaks that we made to the system, most of them based on your feedback and requests out of projects or production scenarios. So we'd like to highlight those as well. As you know, in the last few releases, we have started working and iterating on our recurring payment management in general. And several themes have emerged out of there, where we wanted to improve our payment schedule and mandate schedule experience, where we want to give you the ability to collect your payments automatically. We want to help you handle data changes while you're processing your payments. And we want to give you more tools around data quality and validation to make sure that your data is valid and good. And we are happy that now many of these features are either shipped or moving to the later stages of pilots and betas. So we are closing the subject instead of opening now. To give everybody a reminder, is we have terminology very similar to Salesforce here. So a normal release or feature is GA, which means that it's generally available and part of the subscription and the support and the service level that you're used to us. And then in order for us to build software, for certain features, we use pilot, which is a closed group of customers we work with to test something, and beta, which is a new product that's open to everybody, but we are still maturing it before we call it GA. And at the moment, we've got 3 different pilots and betas running. We've got the auto collect pilot, we've got the data validation pilot, and now we are launching the FinDock PayLinks beta. And we know that for projects, when you start and when you think about what to implement, it's important to you to understand what our timelines are. So we'd like to give you more insight into what our plans are with the different pilots and with the pace we move to production. However, please note that safe harbor applies. If unexpected or if there's change in priorities, then things can go wrong or not according to the original plan. But with the June release now, we have the auto collect and the PayLinks features are in beta, and the data quality validation is in pilot. And with the release hereafter, so that's in the July release, we hope to immediately move PayLinks to generally availability and also data quality validation to a beta stage. Let's start with autocollect. So our autocollect functionality has the purpose to make sure that you set up and configure your recurring payment schedules once, and then we run for you and collect for you in the background automatically. So you can say to us, I want to collect either daily or, for example, every 21st of the month. And then we do that for you perpetually until you change the settings, obviously. And this will significantly reduce the need for ongoing payments operations, which in customers until now had to do, or in their project they needed to customize the automation themselves. And with this release, we added a couple of features to this feature, and we moved it to beta. And a few highlights I want to make is we now have the option for you to exclude specific payment schedules from auto collection. So meaning you can say, in principle, auto collect my payment schedules, but when there's a special, I don't know, Christmas collection, you can exclude that. And you say, I want to do that one manually because of reasons. Then another one is that when you collect daily, there's not always a payment to collect that day. And until now, when there were no installments selected in the payment schedule, we put then the payment schedule to filled. But with auto collect, this could be, it's not filled, there's just no installments to collect. So now we made a difference here that when you auto collect is turned on and when no installments are selected, we put the payment schedule to done instead of to filled. There's two more things we did here. One is that we already had the ability for you to collect on a monthly or in a weekly schedule your payments, but now we added a very simple option called daily. This was already possible with the weekly option and you just selected every day, but so many of our customers in pilot did this that we felt we wanted to give you an explicit option for this, where you say just collect every day. And last but not least is we updated the setup, which on the next slide we have screenshots highlighting what we did here. So you can configure the auto collection from the payment method setup screens, where you can see here that on the left screenshot you see different payment methods that are activated in a certain Salesforce environment, and then here you can see in a blink whether or not auto collect and auto run has been turned on. Then when you want to configure it, you click on the gearbox and a new screen's open in the pop-up where you can turn auto collect and the recurring payment schedules that where you input your pattern, you can all manage those from the setup now. This is interesting because this helps you, we feel, better to configure auto collection, but it's also interesting for us because we have a long desire already for a long time to redesign our setup experience. And this is us learning and trying what works and what doesn't work. So if you have an idea, or if you think this part of the setup needs extra attention, or I have a great idea of how to do that, feel free to let us know because it's something we want to learn and we want to gather feedback on at the moment. The second pilot we'd like to highlight is around data validation. And with data validation, we mean that when you do, for example, your monthly direct debit run or gift aid collection, you select all data in the system, and that's being compiled into either a file or callouts to a PSP. And that can take a longer time. It's a lot of data, and it can fail because of data quality issues. And with this pilot, we built a component in Salesforce that real-time validates the set of data that's in scope for the payment collection, and on a record and field level, very specifically gives you feedback saying, this record is correct, but this record needs, I don't know, the bank statement description is too long because it can be maximum 80 characters and you've inputted 95. And this gives you the ability, before you do your collection, to understand if your data is valid. And if it's not valid, very specifically points you towards a data point that needs improvement. Now, this is still in pilot, but we've made tremendous upgrades on this in the last weeks. The biggest one is that with the previous release, this already worked functionally, but we know it didn't work well enough or fast enough on large data sizes. So for example, we have customers who did it on hundreds and hundreds of thousands of records, and it took hours. Now we've optimized this in the backend, and internally we have tested a real set of data with 300,000 installments, and it was validated in 2.5 minutes. So we now feel that this functionality is usable for smaller customers, medium-sized customers, but also the larger large customers of ours. We did a lot of other things in the backend with your feedback. We got a lot of feedback on this functionality, and we've used that to optimize for certain exception cases, to do our exception handling better, to make certain UI changes at the restart button, show some errors more clearly. So thank you for all your feedback. And we are now in the process of bringing this to all the payment method and payment processor combinations that this applies to. So on the right-hand side, you can already see for which payment methods we already support data validation, and on the left-hand side you see the options that we don't do it yet. Now with this release, we added gift aid to this list as well. So if you're using one or more of the credit card or direct debit or gift aid options highlighted on the right, you can already use this functionality either and simply by putting a Lightning component on your layout. So we have a Lightning component called the FinDock data quality component, and you can simply put this on your payment schedule and or installment layout. And when you run your payment schedule, for example, your monthly payment schedule, you can validate before you process your payment schedule. Now, if you run into an issue or if you have feedback or a question, please feel free to let us know and reach out. We received a lot of feedback already. I try to answer all of it, and we are looking for more. Now, onto the FinDock PayLinks functionality. With this release, we'd like to launch a beta we call FinDock PayLinks. And FinDock PayLinks is exactly what you think it is. We generate paylinks for you that you can share with your customers to, in an easy manner, collect your payments faster. It's really easy to set up. It requires no code. It's very similar in the no-code effort compared to, for example, our giving page capability. And you can brand your paylink page to your liking. Then we do the hard work and we generate the payment links automatically in the backend. And then when a customer of yours uses that link, they can use all the payment methods that you have configured in your Salesforce and FinDock environments. And when the payment is completed, real-time notifications are being sent to Salesforce, and data is updated, being put to collected, and that can trigger your business flows as well. Now, how this works is really easy. You need to configure it once. So there's a paylink builder that we will show you in a minute, where you can brand and customize the page to your liking. Then automatically, there's a field on the installment called Pay URL, which we now fill then automatically with the FinDock PayLink. And you can share and send that to your customers through any channel that you'd like. Then when the customer opens, they go to the web page, they complete the payment, and you get notified in real time in Salesforce. The installments go to collected, the payments will be created, payment profiles updated, etc., etc. Enough talk about this. Lawrence will demo this to us end to end.
Thank you, Stefan. I will indeed show you what we've built. So PayLinks basically starts from the same place as Pages. It starts from the FinDock setup. And as you can see, we have next to the giving page and the guided matching tiles, we have a PayLinks tile. If you click that, you are taken to the builder, which for those who have used FinDock giving pages will look very familiar. But for those who have not, I'll briefly explain what you're seeing. So in the middle, you see a preview of the page and the payment form in itself. Now it's almost a real preview, right? But you do see some warnings here for in case something is not correct. But you can actually click it, and if you press a button, it goes somewhere and you can see what you have configured. On the left-hand side, you see the structure of the page, because you can do more than just configure the payment form. You can also configure logo, labels, and other stuff. On the right-hand side, you see the publish button and a refresh button in case your changes don't show up immediately, but I'll show you those later. So let's build our PayLinks page. We'll start with making it our own. So there's a dummy logo here, which we'll remove, and we'll add our own logo. And there it is, our FinDock logo. And of course, we also want to add our company name here in case people don't recognize our logo. And we want to make sure that they recognize that this page comes from us, even though we've already sent them the link, and save those changes. Now, the most important part of this page is, of course, the payment form itself. But this also needs to be branded. So from FinDock, let me quickly refresh this and start at the beginning. Our brand color is this orange, and we want the payment form, spinner, the buttons, and other things to be orange as well. Next up is configuring payment methods. So basically, you can control what payment methods people see. I'll zoom in a bit so that it's easier to see. And we can choose from basically every single payment method that has been configured in the environment. So for this demo, we'll pick credit card from Stripe. Let's add Molly Ideal. Maybe we'll add a payment method from Adyen and direct debit to FinDock itself. Just like with giving pages, you can set the default payment method here, and you can select targets, and you can change the labels if you'd like to make it look a little bit different. We save this, save the component, and then we publish it. Now at this point, basically our first configuration of PayLinks is done. Brand, so we put in our brand, we put in our logo, we selected payment methods, and that was it. To see what it looks like, we'll go to an installment, because the PayLink lives on the installment, and every single installment from this release on will have an auto-generated URL in the pay URL field at the bottom here. If I click this, I will go to a PayLinks page, which takes data from the installment. So it takes the open amount to show an amount here. It takes a due date. It takes a description to make it more clear what's happening. And as you can see, even though I selected credit card as a default payment method, it also takes the payment method on the installment, for in case you want to set a specific default payment method for this installment. But let's switch to credit card with Stripe. And then we fill in our details for Stripe, a best credit card. Then we pay. And if the payment is successful, which takes a little bit with Stripe because it needs to verify, we are taken back to our PayLinks page, which has a success page. Now this is basically it. And of course, a notification is now sent to FinDock. to the installment, which was set to status new. And if the payment was successful, we can now see that this installment has been collected and a new payment has been created for credit cards with Stripe for the amount of 10 euros. And that's basically it. So this is everything you need to do to set it up, as long as you already have payment methods, and to start collecting your first payment with giving pages. Now, because this is automatically generated on every installment, you can do a lot of things for this with basic Salesforce automation. So for instance here, we've created a simple flow on the contact, which can create a payment link. And all it needs is an amount, preferably a description, of course. Let's type something random. We can leave the due date empty or select one. We click next, and basically we create an installment and we grab the paying from the pay URL, and we're ready to go. Now you could also, for instance, through a Salesforce App Exchange plugin or the Google API, the Graph API, create a QR code here that you can directly send to the contact. But because it's a link, you can basically do everything. And again, here, we're ready to pay this. And that's it. Now, this is a bit boring, right? This is gray. And the last thing I'd like to show you is that with the builder, which is, again, similar to giving pages, you can change all the labels on the page. So for instance, you could translate everything, or you can make the page a bit less boring by adding, for instance, a background image, which is not here, but in another directory. You add it to brand it a bit more to your liking. And by simply adding a background image and publishing it, this pay link already looks a lot different now. And that's it. I think that's back to Stefan.
Thank you, Lawrence. I see a lot of questions, and we will get through those now. But what we have seen is we saw Lawrence with a truly vanilla setup. So when we started this demo, nothing was configured yet for payment links. But if the API or if the connection to, for example, a Stripe or another payment service provider is already in the org, it's literally minutes to configure. The creation then is automatically done and stored in the FinDock installment field. And you can share it and start collecting payments fast and easy automatically. There's a couple of things I'd like to highlight to make sure that you saw in the demo and to clarify there. And when a customer or you opens the payment link form, we do at that time a call out to Salesforce to get the real-time status and data from that installment. Meaning that if you have a payment or an installment of, let's say, 50 euros, and somebody wire transfers 25 to you, then the open amount on the installment is 25. And then if the customer opens the payment link after the wire transfer, then instead of 50, the payment link will ask you for 25 euros. Now, there's a question, what happens if the open amount is 0 and it's already collected? Well, there's a screen for that. And if you go, if we do a get on the installment and the open amount is 0, there's a screen in the pay link page that will say to you, this payment is already collected, thank you. And obviously you can then color and brand and edit the text you'd like to highlight to your customers. The other thing I'd like to highlight is that next to the open amount, the due date, and the description that's dynamic, it's also the currency dynamic. Meaning, if you collect in euros or pounds or Swiss francs or any other currency, that's all fine, that all works. If you are a multi-currency setup and you invoice, for example, in euros, pounds, and dollars, that's also fine, because next to when we do a get, we also get the currency ISO code of that installment, and we collect the payment from your customer in the currency that you indicated on your installment dynamically. Last, but definitely not least, very similar to giving pages, you can brand this page. You saw the demo on what that looks like on the desktop screen, but obviously it renders also, it's mobile first, so it renders on a mobile, very smooth and very neat as well. Now the good news is that if you have a sandbox with FinDock in it, you can already use it. This is available to you in your sandboxes right now. But this will be a paid add-on feature in production when this is GA, meaning that we will, meaning that it needs to be enabled in your production environment as part of your contract with FinDock. Now in sandboxes, it's open to use and to try. And we are very keen to understand with you whether or not you're interested in this. What use cases do you see? Do you want to use it for invoicing, for maybe a follow-up journey on rejected payments? For what are the use cases that you're considering? So if you're interested, please go to this URL, findock.com/paylinksbeta, and let us know that you're interested and highlight the use case that you see. We are very interested to work with you and understand if the product is a fit, or how or what we can update to make it a fit to your use cases. Yeah, before we move on to the other topic, there's a couple of questions I think that we also want, that I still need to answer. Is the question Lawrence already mentioned, but we generate a link and you can transform that in any form that you'd like. So if you want to display a link in the form of a QR, there's a very, but there's several tools to helping you to do that. So you're definitely free to do so. We also hope and think that you can, for example, include this as a button on a PDF or an invoice or in an email, that instead of a link, it's a hyperlink in a button. Now, there's the last question I'd like to answer is, how does this work with the FinDock Payment Intent API? And similar to giving pages, this works on top of our Payment Intent V2 API, the current long-time support version of our API. Now, if you're a customer and you're using API V1, you don't need to move all your connections to API V2 in order to use this, because you can use both APIs next to each other in parallel. That, however, means that the notifications go from the webhub instead of via the Visual Foresight. So there's a bit of configuration to do, but once that's done, you can use API V1 and V2 in parallel and switch over to the newer version in a phased fashion. Yeah. Then there's a question. The last question, I see a new question coming in on this, and it's can you capture data elements on the payment? And the answer is no. No. With FinDock payment links, the goal of the page is to collect the payment. So if there's an open amount, you can invoice that, or you can collect that and offer that to your customer. If you want to collect, for example, a donation, we have a tool much more suitable for that, called FinDock Giving Pages, where people can also input their contact information. They can give it the gift aid declaration. They can put in their address information, and it's all being created in the backend. So that's already possible, but that's FinDock Giving Pages, not FinDock PayLinks. Hope that answers your question. We will stick around at the end of the session to answer more questions, but for now, let's move on and close out with the bugs and enhancements we made specifically for this release. So for this release, we did a couple of tweaks, as already said, around the recurring payment schedule, where we added the option for daily next to weekly and monthly. We have been working, and that's coming soon, on a mandate schedule path, very similar to the payment schedule. And the payment schedule path has had its last update, where you now can also see the details of what happened after the fact, so when the stage is closed. We have made we've made a few updates to our SEPA package and processing, where the best one is that a couple of months ago with Brexit, there were a few rule changes that additional information was needed when you wanted to do a SEPA direct debit on a UK bank account. And we have essentially upgraded this not only to UK bank accounts, but to all non-EEA bank accounts. So when you do a SEPA direct debit to, for example, a Swiss bank account or a UK bank account or any other of the non-EEA countries, then this data validation, this extra data now is needed. And we've incorporated that in our data quality component to highlight that to you, how that works. The last thing I'd like to say here is that when you're using us together with Stripe, we made a breaking change for sandboxes where you need to reconnect your Stripe account. That's very simple. It's 2 clicks, but it means that your current Stripe sandbox connection is invalidated and you need to reconnect in order to reboot it. That's inconvenient. Our apologies for that, but it's only sandboxes, not production. Now, that being said, we have written very detailed release notes and made available to you as usual on our docs website. So feel free to use those. And if there's additional questions, then you know where to find us. We are happy to engage with you, receive feedback, or understand from you your use cases. This video will be posted on our YouTube channel, and you can help us tremendously by subscribing to our YouTube channel, I've been told. So please do so. That we really appreciate that. Thank you for joining. This was what we wanted to share with you. We are really excited about the pilots and betas we are running. We are very proud of FinDock PayLinks. So please reach out to us with your feedback and the use cases you see. We will stick around. Enjoy your weekend and see you next time.